Welcome to She Is His, a podcast from the Pretty and Wise Collective. Here, we are all about digging into God's Word and sharing real and honest, sometimes ridiculous, stories of faith and growing together in wisdom, grace, and courage. Think of this as your invitation to go grab a cup of coffee, pull up a chair, and join in on the conversation. Together we'll laugh, we're going to learn, and we're going to lean into God's truth so that we can boldly walk as His daughters. New episodes are going to be dropping every other Friday, so don't forget to follow us on social media, or feel free to visit www.prettyandwise.com to stay connected. All right, ladies, let's dive in, let's grow in wisdom, and let's celebrate the beauty of sisterhood in Christ. This week, we're talking about balance in our everyday lives and how the heck is anyone supposed to accomplish that? I'll give you a little hint. It probably doesn't look like the way you expect. So grab a drink, whether you're running errands and doing the daily checklist or you're sitting down for a nice quiet moment. Let's take a minute and see what the ladies have to say about it.
Hey, and welcome to the She Is His podcast. I'm Lindsay Terry. I'm your host. And I'm so glad you're here today. Today, we have most of our team with us. We have Tanya Glansman with My Father's Daughter and Pretty and Wise. We have Gay Idol with Captive Heart and Pretty and Wise. We have Angie Race with Pretty and Wise. And we have Lori Gregory with Pretty and Wise and me with Pretty and Wise. We're so glad that you're here today. One thing we talked about last month was when we were kind of discussing some ideas for podcasts. One thing that you all brought up when we asked for some input and was brought up in our conversation was kind of the daily stuff. How do you find balance in the everyday stuff? And I think that's a question that all of us ask all the time. And none of us, I don't know how you say that. Many of us don't know how to achieve that or what that would even look like if you could achieve it. And so we wanted to talk about that today. How do you juggle ministry and family and work and your friendship and dreams and goals and still show up for Jesus without losing yourself completely in your everyday life?
Just losing it in general.
Or just losing it in general. Yes. Well, I wanted to start out with a little story, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And not all of you have heard this story, and I'm excited to share it. So, something I started asking myself just in the past couple of days would Jesus prioritize this? And I actually have it as the lock screen on my phone. So, every time I look at my phone, which is an ungodly amount of time during the day, I'm working on it. The question I'm faced with before I even unlock it is, would Jesus prioritize this?
Do you then put your phone immediately back down?
A lot of times, yes. It's changing me. One thing I've noticed too is it's not just changing how much I'm looking at my phone, because that's really what it started at. It's a question then, because I see it a lot, that even when I don't see it, I'm starting to ask myself, would Jesus prioritize this attitude I have right now? Would he prioritize this thing I'm spending my time on? Would he prioritize this event? And one of the things, my husband and I, we had this, my son plays baseball, and he had a game Friday night. But our church also had an outreach event Friday night. And we took like 200 of our friends and family, a lot of them unbelieving friends and family, to go see King of Kings in the theater. It's a new family movie about the life of Jesus. And my husband and I talked, and we kind of asked ourselves that question, would Jesus prioritize this? And so we said to my son's coach, we're not going to be at the game. We have a church outreach event. I know it's just a movie, but it's really an evangelism tool, and we want to be a part of it. So we went. And you know what's interesting is my daughter popped a fever the night before, and she was feeling like crap. My husband woke up. Am I allowed to say feeling like crap? She was not feeling well. My husband woke up and was not feeling great, went to work, came home early, and was like, I don't know, maybe I'll just keep the baby or Abby home tonight. And I was like, in my such loving, empathetic, loving, wifely May was like, suck it up, buttercup. I'm not taking all these kids by myself. So we all went. And we went and I chased a baby around the theater, and my daughter asked some hilarious questions and talked way too loud. She's 5. And wanted everybody's drinks and popcorns. And I'm like, are you even watching this, And she was. At the end of it, she was asking some great questions and some embarrassing questions I won't air on the podcast. But you're just, sometimes you're like, oh, that's my kid. Yeah. Why? You're a kid. Okay. Yeah, we're having some moments like that. But we get in the van, and my sons rode with Papa and Gigi, and Abby, my 5-year-old daughter, and our baby rode with my husband and I. And my daughter says, we said, how'd you like the movie? And she says, it really gave me faith. I was like, oh, well, tell me about that. And she was like, well, Jesus died for us. And when I need help, Jesus is the one who can help me. And when I don't know what to do, Jesus is the one who knows what to do. And so I said, okay, well, let's talk more about that. Do you know why, in the movie, it shows that Jesus died on the cross and was raised to life again. Do you know why Jesus died on the cross? And she talked about because we can't be friends with God and we have sin that we can't get rid of except for Jesus, because he never sinned. He was perfect. He was a perfect guy. I said, yeah, and he was God's son. Yeah, and so he died and paid for our sin so that we could be friends with God. And I was like, yeah, you're getting it. And she said, when can I be baptized? She's like, I want to live for Jesus. So my husband and I, in the parking lot, stopped and we prayed with her. And she told Jesus, I want to follow you all the days of my life. And we drove to the church because there was a group of people who were giving their life to the Lord and being baptized. And my 5-year-old daughter was baptized last night. I'll join that verse. And so it was
so awesome.
So surprising. And my husband on the way home goes, well, I'm really glad we prioritized this. I'm really glad I didn't stay home tonight. And I'm really glad we didn't keep her home because, well, she had a fever yesterday. And we just felt like, no, I know we're like breaking all the rules of what you should do, but this is a priority. And so in talking about balance and finding balance, one thing that I think is true is balance does not look like equal amounts of everything. It looks like everything having its rightful place in our hearts and minds and schedules. And so something like that outreach event deserved a higher place than baseball did in our heart and our mind and our schedule for our family. And if we look at God and his example of balance, he didn't create for 6 days and rest for 6 days. He created for 6 days and rested for 1. And that's balance. Yeah. And so it's not equal time and attention and effort to every area of our life. And so often that's our idea of balance. And then we feel like, why can I never achieve balance? So I want to start with defining that balance is not equal time and attention and effort to everything. It's everything in its rightful place in our hearts, our minds, and our schedules.
So sometimes balance looks like imbalance.
Yes.
Wonky. Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, if you're trying to balance on one foot, what are you doing? Are you perfectly still? No. You're constantly shifting your weight. There's movement involved to keep yourself steady. And you're anchored. Yeah. And that's what balance looks like in our life so often, is moving here and moving there and shifting our weight and our focus to keep ourselves anchored and steady, that there's movement involved with that. So in all of that, where do you start in figuring out what real, true balance needs to look like in your daily life?
Well, without talking about the obvious first, which would be, your devotional time, really is determine what stage of life you're in. What is your season right now? Because if you don't recognize, well, I'm in this season, so that means I have certain limits. I have little ones all the time. So that means it's going to make a difference. Like I can't do like what my mom does. Like, Lindsay can't do like what I do. I can spend 2 or 3 hours in the morning in my quiet time. I no longer have little children at my feet, so I'm in this rich golden season as far as my devotional life goes that sets me up for my day. But I feel so blessed because I know, having lived this many years, there are many seasons when you just don't have that kind of time. And so you need to reckon, what season am I in, and what does this, then how do I then prioritize what Jesus wants me to prioritize in this season of my life? So I would think the first thing is recognizing what season of life you're in.
Yeah. I think surrender, once you like, see, this is my season, surrendering that to the Lord, whatever you want. Because like in Matthew 11, what does Jesus say? My yoke is easy and my burden is light. My yoke is easy. Tying yourself to me is easy. And the weight of living for me is light in comparison to what? Doing it your way. Mm-hmm. So tie yourself to me. And so surrendering your definition of balance, surrendering your idea of what you want your life to look like, and surrendering, which for me as someone in a very different season than mom, I would love 3 hours in the morning in a cozy chair, just sitting with my Bible in such a quiet, little peaceful house. But my morning is loud and chaotic and full of life, busy, crazy life. So my time with Jesus comes differently, and I need to surrender that. My picture perfect ideal needs to be given to the Lord because it looks different than maybe what I want it to. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean it's wrong or bad. Right?
Yeah, it could mean, like, for instance, my difference between Gay and Lindsay is I full-time work outside the home. Mm-hmm. And I have younger children.
Yes.
So I have a little bit of a different juggling act. And so for me, surrendering the fact that I don't have that time is definitely up there. And that may look like not 3 hours, but 3 minutes that I have for me and Jesus, but still prioritizing that is important.
Utilizing like a car ride to connect with the Lord, or saying, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice some of my sleep to connect with Jesus. It's not going to be earlier in the morning always, but maybe the kids go down and instead of vegging out like some of us like to do, I'm going to go to the Lord and connect to his heart, even though I'm like dead tired, that I also need him more now because I'm dead tired. So
I sleep better when I do that.
Yes.
When I spend those last several minutes of my day, it just becomes part of my nighttime routine. And so it becomes part of the balance of my life to have that time with Jesus in the evening. I rest better.
Yeah.
Because I can read his word, I can pray, and I can give it to him, and then go lay down, go to sleep, because it's his now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that be still and know that I am God makes me faint, because especially in the evening time, then you're finally have a minute to sit and be still. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's when is that time that you can finally sit and be still before God and recognize him and in your day, and as you plan out the next part of your day, have some, just the stillness sometimes. Just God just speaks. And sometimes I just think he just heals our inner spirit when we are quiet before him. And so I think we need to have grace-based expectations of ourselves.
Yes.
We're so high on ourselves. And
we are. I think some of that comes from the culture we're in and the social media that we see. Everybody's highlight reel, right? You've heard that a million times, but it's still real true. People put out what we want other people to see, the best parts of ourselves. And then we think that's all the parts of themselves. And then we're disappointed that we have those less lovely, the less lovely parts. Yes. And so I think surrendering not just our ideal, but the ideal that's imposed on us of what a good Christian woman should look like based on a lot of times even people who don't follow Christ. But you hear from politicians, oh, Christians shouldn't be like this. Or you hear from, your friends, I thought you said you were Christian. Or you hear from all different kinds of people, whether they're Christians or not, on what a Christian woman should look like. And so I think we have to, it's not that we can't use those as guiding voices, but the main voice that is the determining voice needs to be God's voice on what our life needs to look like, and his word on what our life needs to look like. And so we need to be able to lay down our expectations and pick up what God has asked of us. So
I think too, finding the holy in the moment. I think along with seasons, I meet so many younger women who feel like they are missing out on their calling or not fulfilling whatever great thing that God has for them to do because they're looking at other people that speak from platforms or podcasts or whatever, and they feel like they're less than or they're not as significant because they're not in ministry. When every day that they get up and wipe butts and noses, they are ministering. They are ministering to their children and to their husbands and to their neighbors and to their friends and to the people at the park, and finding the holy in the moment of serving and loving and sacrificing and giving your heart and your life to the people around you. The Lord called us to love mercy, live justly, and walk humbly with our God. And that is the calling of all of us. And so letting go of the expectation that if you're not on a platform or doing a podcast, that the ministry that you're doing is insignificant.
yes, absolutely.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And I think if you are on a platform or a podcast or even working for a church, there's a danger in, because your ministry is public, that we don't value our private ministry enough. And our private ministry, what we do not in front of other people, what we do in the sight of only God, and people who don't necessarily esteem us as, whatever. That's more value. Now, what do people who hear us? Yes, that's more valuable in many ways, because you're doing it for God, not for puffing yourself up. The puffing yourself up temptation isn't there when it's wiping butts in your house.
Yeah, right.
When it's just talking to somebody at the park about Jesus and there's not a camera there to catch it. So I think for people who do have platforms and public ministries, there's a danger of it not being in honor and service to God, and instead looking that way, but really being in honor and service of our own egos. And so we need to pay attention to that. So before we move on to something else I want to talk about, you can pause this with this question to kind of think through it. What are you carrying that God hasn't asked you to carry? That's something I've been asking myself lately.
What are you carrying that God hasn't asked you to carry?
Yeah. A lot. I heard it said recently, and I thought this was so good, that the difference between a productive person and a busy person is that a busy person has goals. And when I first heard that, I was like, that's stupid. Goals are good.
Yeah.
But then a productive person has priorities. We all have goals. We all have a million things we want to do, could, should, woulda. But if we don't prioritize those things, then those things start running us. And then what do we have to show for ourselves? It's like whatever comes at us first, we end up doing, rather than what's the most important thing right now. What does God ask me to do versus just something cool I want to do, or some, which if we prioritize and say yes to all the goods, we sacrifice the great.
Yeah, right. Even the goods we don't want to do.
We don't like.
How many of us do things because there's a need to be filled and we've been asked, and rather than saying no or asking the Lord if we should do it out of guilt or obligation, we just say, okay, I'll do that. And then we end up feeling overwhelmed and bitter and resentful because we're doing something that we really didn't have the capacity to do.
Yeah. And honestly, then that space is not open for the person who is being asked by the Lord to do that, for them to step in, because we're in the way.
Yeah. The Proverbs tells us, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding, but trust in him, and then he will make your path straight. So we want to plan from a place of peace and not a place of pressure.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah. You should write that down. Plan from a place of peace, not a place of pressure. And that comes from that surrender.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about stewardship? All right. We've surrendered. We've looked at the season of our life. We're planning from peace and not pressure. Mm-hmm. Okay. So then how do we steward all of our spinning plates? We've put down the things that maybe God's not asked us to do. I just want to reiterate, balance is not about doing all the things, and it's not about doing them all equally.
Yeah.
It's right balance is when everything is in its rightful place in our hearts, minds, and schedules. It's about doing the right things well.
And it's about letting go of comparison. Mm-hmm. Don't compare ourselves to others. But we sort of talked about a little bit there, that because that just puts way too much pressure on us.
Yeah. So then how do we steward? How do you steward then the things that you're doing and keep a right balance on those? How do you personally do that? Make sure that you've got things in the right place.
I think the right answer is acknowledging that everything we have belongs to the Lord. We have nothing outside of him. So everything we have is his essentially. And like the parable of the people with the talents.
Yeah.
The Lord knows the best use of our time, talent, and ability, resources. And so ultimately, when you want to know what to do, you go to the person that is in charge and you say, how would you like me to utilize these things that you've given me? What's the best use of this? And we all have the same amount of time. We all have 24 hours in a day. And what the Lord has for me to do with my 24 hours looks different than what he has for you to do. So it's not a one size fit all. Yeah, there's not one recipe.
The only recipe is that you ask God daily, what do you want me to focus on today, Lord?
Yeah.
I mean, it is important to seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all of these things will be added to you. And what was he just talking about? Worrying about, your life. What are you going to eat? What are you going to drink? What are you going to What are you going to wear? And that's what we worry about every time, how we supply for our families, all of that. As I said, God just seek his kingdom first, then all that stuff's going to be taken care of. So we do need to ask him, okay, Lord, practically, what am I going to focus on? And then, it's the whole picture. Don't give yourself a massive to-do list. I mean, if you got to get it off your brain, write it all on a big piece of paper. Pick the top 3.
Prioritize.
Pick the top 3. You focus on those that day.
Yeah.
Then you can go back to that list later. Put the list away. You don't want to keep looking at it until you are done. And then you're like, okay, I got 3 more. But that's the top 3. And then everything else flows because your life flows not out of your to-do list. Your life flows around your family, around whatever your ministry and your job is. And so you kind of go with the flow of life while keeping your top priorities in mind throughout the day.
Yeah.
You focus on the things that you absolutely need to do. And then you also want to schedule in some margin if you can, because you can't. There's got to be some white space.
That's something my therapist gets on me about. is scheduling and margin. Because if you live to your ceiling, then when something explodes in your life, not that I know anything about that, then you have you've nowhere to go except for panic and chaos.
Yeah.
And so you have to have margin. So if there's an explosion and everything rises here, you're not, losing your mind.
And I think letting go of perfectionism and recognizing that you're not going to homeschool your young children, have an immaculate house, have a 5-course meal every night, and have the energy left to love your husband well if you're married at the end of the day.
And bake 6 loaves of bread. Yeah, it's not going to work.
Are you? What are you?
Yeah.
It's very pointed at me. So then I also was thinking, wow, Allie, you didn't hear that.
This wasn't a divine appointment for me today.
So it's letting go of perfectionism and accepting that.
My grace is sufficient for you, the Lord's. Yeah.
Yeah. And on any given day, you may have a clean house, but your kids may have more screen time.
Yep.
Or you may have cereal for dinner, but you're going to have energy to love your husband well.
Yeah.
So and something's got to give.
And grace over perfection.
I've had that
conversation.
This.
And you, but not you, but me. I've had that conversation with my husband before about, well, he has a to-do list that's constantly going, and he'll pick a couple things and he'll do them and get it done. He doesn't sit still. But he seems to find the time to get things done that I can't seem to get done. But I've told him, I'm like, I just have a different capacity than you.
Yeah.
And I think that goes along with what we're saying is that that goes along with not comparing, it goes along with prioritizing, it goes along with surrender. You have to realize, in the season that you're in, you have to realize that your capacity is going to change from season to season as well.
Absolutely.
I think about our little farm that we have. It's about to be spring, which means prioritizing planting.
Yep.
And then prioritizing harvest in the fall and the late summer and all that kind of stuff. You have, so that means that these things over here are not going to happen because during this season, this has to be a priority.
Yeah.
And I think that that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't bake 6 loaves of bread today,
Okay, because I put some seeds in the ground.
That's right. I put some seeds in the ground. Yeah.
You got to speak the truth, which is what you're doing, over your overwhelm.
Why did this turn into therapy?
You said something recently. You asked yourself a question, and I'm like, wow, can you share about that? Do you know what I'm talking about? She's like, wow.
What's the least you can do? That stuck with me too.
Yes. Well, I wasn't the one that started with. I heard it. Somebody said it, but it really stuck with me because it was said as like a joke. Like, what is the least I can do? It's so. I feel like it's so useful, like in daily life, because like there's so many times where your expectations don't match your capacity, or your expectations don't match your time. And so you're frozen and you will do nothing. Right. You will stay in that overwhelm unless you say, well, should I just not do anything? Or should I just try to do it just a little bit? What is the least I can do? How can I do this poorly? I know that's like a bad way to say it, but I mean, it's not though. But I mean, it's freeing. Yeah, I think it's freeing.
Absolutely. You can apply it to so many different aspects of life. Like I know, I just said a minute ago that sometimes it's 3 minutes that I get with Jesus instead of 3 hours. Okay, so I have 3 minutes. What can I do? What's the least that I can do with my time today? Not necessarily with Jesus.
What can you do with the least?
But what can you get with the least? You can apply that to your exercise. Something is better than nothing. Walking around the house 3 times or going up and down the stairs 3 times is better than sitting on your bottom. That's great. I know, right? So that is I think that's a.
Okay, I feel like the world is the opposite, right? But yeah, like unless you have this amount of time dedicated to something, or at least you're at this level, then it matters. I don't think that's true, though. I think that keeps you from moving forward.
Mm-hmm. It does. And I'll say the other night, that question, I've heard that question from you. I haven't heard anywhere else, so I'm just going to give you the credit. But Lori's original question, what's the least I can do? You told me that the other week, and the other night, I was like dead tired. I came home. The kids were all, watching a movie in the living room, and I just wanted to go to bed. And my husband and the baby were already asleep. The kids like to sleep out in the living room. That's their like favorite thing to do on a weekend. But I was looking at my chaotic house that desperately needed some love. And I asked myself that question before I go to bed, what's the least I can do? And I was like, I'm going to clean this countertop. It's one countertop, yeah, but that's what I have. That's what I did. And I, was able to do more than I thought I could, because it just giving it that 5 minutes proved to me, okay, that only took me 5 minutes. And I've been sitting on this feeling like I am so overwhelmed, I can't deal with that countertop. And it took me 5 minutes. So sometimes asking yourself the question is just that kick in the pants you need. And then that turned into the next inspiration. The next morning I woke up and I was like, well, that only took me 5 minutes. That means that counter's only going to take me 5 minutes. Let me do that. Yeah. And the next thing I do, an hour later, my whole kitchen was deep cleaned. So that's the only clean part of my house. But if you want to come over to my kitchen, it's going to look that way for a couple more days. So we're lighting up. Oh, Harry.
That time thing, it's funny. I catch myself often thinking, I don't have enough time. It's like a time thing. It's like I don't have enough time to do that. But when I just get started, I realize what I think I didn't have enough time to do really didn't take as long as I thought it was going to take.
Yeah, just like that. If you don't get done the ideal of what you think it's supposed to look like, we need to let go of the ideal and embrace the real.
Oh, you're just full of shit.
These are flowing with all the stuff that I thought of Jesus for viewing Sundays on the right couch. It is.
I would think it too. It's like I have a really hard time leaving things unfinished at the end of the day. Like it kind of goes against my natural personality, but my husband is really good at that. Like, stop. And I asked him, I'm like, well, I want to understand how you do that. And, he kind of like just basically told me like, in the work, in his job or whatever, he doesn't get every project accomplished at the point that he thinks it's going to get accomplished. At someday he has to leave it for the next day. And so that's been really like freeing to me. Like, well, at some point I'm going to have to call it,
It's true. I mean, whenever I had to get all the laundry and all the dishes and all the cooking and all the shopping done.
No, right.
And, your thought about the movie, which you didn't really go here, but it made me think about this. I remember when my kids were little and I would want to take the time they were sitting and watching a movie to do things around the house that I couldn't do when they weren't watching the movie, right? But they would want me to come sit with them and watch the movie. And I would feel like, in my heart, this is such a waste of time.
yeah.
But realizing at some point, probably because my wise husband told me that the value of sitting with them and watching the movie was greater than doing the dishes or getting the value for it.
Yes.
They didn't ask good that night, just so you know, I didn't reject my children. It's probably good, because if they would have asked it, we're like, sure, I don't want to clean that countertop anyway. So a couple things questions I try to ask, and this is honestly new for me because this is a huge area of growth for me this year, is learning what real balance needs to look like in my life. And so I've been asking myself these 3 questions. Is this assignment from God? Or is this just something good that I want to be a part of? Because if it's not from God, it's not his best. And then I'm sacrificing the great for the good. And I want the great. Does this align with the calling on my life? So does this serve the top priorities and ministries in my life that God has called me to? And what is the cost to my soul or my family? And those 3 questions really help me figure out the priorities. If you're like, I'm struggling, all these things are good, how do I prioritize? I think those are 3 great questions that have been helpful to me. You can ask yourself to help get a priority on all the good things you want to do and be a part of, good pursuits. Is it from God? Does it align with the calling on my life, or the top priorities the Lord has already said, like, you know what those are? And what is the cost to my soul or family? Because Ephesians 5 says, 15 and 16, be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity. Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise. And where does my wisdom? It comes from God. So if I want to be wise in the decisions I make and the things I prioritize and how I spend my time and my effort, I need to be going to the Lord and asking, is this assignment from you? Mm-hmm. Is this what you're calling me to? And count the cost.
Which, from a practical perspective, takes discipline not to say yes right away. Yes. I think in the moment, somebody comes to you and kind of puts you on the spot and asks you, hey, can you fill in the blank? The people pleaser in us and the desire for people to like us or to want to be seen as a kind and giving person can immediately say, of course, no problem, I'll take care of that for you. But we're really not giving the Lord an opportunity to speak into that place when we do that. Yeah. So a better response is, thank you so much for asking. I'm gonna think about that or pray on that, and then I'll get back to you. And just not saying yes right away is a disciplined that can be very beneficial.
We talked about that in our rest podcast.
We did.
We kind of mentioned how, and this was in relation to ministry, but that really fits with anything.
Yeah.
I love when I ask someone to be part of a ministry and their response isn't an immediate yes. It's let me ask the Lord. Let me take a little bit of time to pray about that. Because then I know if they give me yes, they're not going to regret it. Yeah. And be like, oh, I didn't consider this or whatever, because it was a knee-jerk reaction, the people pleaser in us that, oh yeah, my schedule's clear, of course I can do it.
And then sometimes people say no, and you're like, have you talked to Jesus about
that?
Yes. I think maybe you need to go talk to Jesus about that and see what he says.
So I actually do typically, when I ask people to be a part of ministries, I say, would you pray about partnering in this ministry? And people love when I ask that. Because if Jesus says yes, then you can't say no.
You could, but it's not a wise decision.
Yeah.
But sort of on a flip side, we're asked to do things all the time. And sometimes there are needs, and the needs need to be filled, and they're kind of urgent. And I think that comes, having wisdom in those moments are, whether you say yes or no, is that you have a handle over what your life is, where you are in the season, and what you have time for. And sometimes those don't take the extra prayer because you already know, well, I know that's not like, it's the lines in that area. Yeah, is that either aligns or it doesn't, or at this moment and in this time in life, I'm so sorry I don't have the time to do that. If something opens down the road, I'll let you know. But right now I can't. Yeah, or I can because I have the time. I know I'm not going to be doing this for the rest of my life. But I have the time to serve in this capacity right now.
Yes. I like what you said too about blocking out time for margin in your life. I recently asked ChatGPT, your favorite new best friend, like new best friend, or as tell people feel the devil. I don't know. I'm going to give it to the Lord. Okay. Yeah. But I did ask ChatGPT just out of curiosity. I was like, here's all of my priorities and here's all the things I do. And these are the, some things require a certain amount of hours because you have a job and you need to make sure you're fulfilling some of those hours. And these are other big priorities in my life and things that I need to do. Can you sketch out my week for me just to see? And it scheduled margin in for me because I didn't think about margin. Like, just max me out. And I'm like, my goal is I want to be in bed by midnight every night, and then I'll be up at 7 a.m. And so, because my kids don't sleep past 7.
My goodness, that sounds horrible.
Midnight?
Yeah, I'm like,
you're on my schedule. We're on my schedule.
That's what's up. Okay, so anyway,
it's not enough for me though.
But ChatGPT was like, you need margin.
So even ChatGPT
that will know.
I would give you a little tip on helping you keep balance if you can't do grocery like menu planning in your brain, like it just doesn't work for you, go to ChatGPT.
Oh, ChatGPT tell us my menu. They will do your menu, plan your grocery list.
If you tell them what grocery store you go to, they will tell you the prices, your grocery list, the whole 9 yards.
Nobody in this room is affiliated or is being okay for an
Not a sponsor, Jeep.
I don't even know what it is altogether.
I've never used it before. It's all get here. Yeah.
No, but that is a good pro tip. I get in there. I need to feed 6 people this week, a budget of $100. I need 3 meals a day. Go. And here are my allergies. And it goes. And I'll be like $100 a week is all I want to spend on groceries, which is not a lot for 6 people. And y'all, my grocery bill has been cut in half. Anyway, moving on.
Yes.
So there's some important stewardship information. Use ChatGPT for your grocery list, and that'll be fun balance and great margin. Anyway, everything else in your budget. Except discipline your kids. That's on you. No, that's on you. So the last thing I really want to talk about in this is understanding rhythms in your quest for balance. That you weren't created for constant hustle, and that's something that I fight against. And we talked a lot about this, so we don't need to spend a ton of time, but I do want to touch on it with everybody's voice. We talked about it a lot in our rest episode, our rest and Sabbath, that you were made to abide. You weren't made to hustle. Right? Hustle is a part of things we do, but hustling has to stop so that you can be with God.
Yes.
Not always do with God. Because yes, there were 6 days of work, but there was 1 day of rest. And so to build in, talking about that margin, building in a rhythm of rest, worship, prayer, and connection in your week that you have to plan. That's, every marriage therapist I've ever heard in my whole life is like, you should schedule sex. And you're like, that takes all the romance out of it. But the reality is when you are in chaos raising kids season of life, if you don't do things like that, you're always going to be too tired. Yeah. You're always going to have other things to do. And then it falls low on the totem pole. And then your marriage starts to not look too great anymore. So you got to sometimes schedule the things, and it kind of makes it unsexy for a minute, but it's fine. It's the same thing here. We think in our heads, just like we think, oh, sex will happen, I don't have to schedule it. We think, oh, rest will happen, I don't have to schedule it. No, you've got to schedule your rest or you won't take a rest. There's always something to do, especially if you're a wife, if you're a mom. It's just like,
It's never ended.
Proverbs 31 that woman was awesome.
She had servants.
Though. First of all,
I always thought, Lord, why did you make us so that we had to sleep? Like, do you know how much more I could get done?
Yes, sleep never occurred to me.
Requirement.
My thing that I said was, why do we have to go to the bathroom? Can you imagine how much time
You could be in a flow.
I think so much more, but God knew. God knew.
Yes.
We would not. So we
Work ourselves to death. Margin is holy too. White space is holy too. It's important.
God took time out, or Jesus took time out, right?
Yes.
not that it's
God did. Well, God did, but we just already talked about that. Yeah, Jesus did too.
And it's a command.
It's a command. And
honor the Sabbath and keep that.
And why is it? I'll reiterate something we talked about on the Rest podcast. Because the Israelites, the commands weren't given until they came out of Egypt, right? The Israelites, when they were in Egypt, they were forced to work all the time. There was no rest for that. Right. It was work, produce, or you have no value. You're done. If you can't do something for us, you're done. And then God brought them out of that. They had years, generations of that mindset. Produce or you have no value. And God had to break that off of them. And so there was a command. You must rest because your value is not in what you do. It's in who I say you are. Mm-hmm. And so we have to learn that because we are in a culture that's if you don't produce, you don't have value. Right. Look at, I'm not going to try and get too political here, but look at the pro-life movement and the pro-choice movement and so much the argument for things like abortion or even euthanization for older people is, well, they're not producing anything. There's not a value there. So what? So we can just get rid of them because they're not doing anything for society. They're not contributing to society. Our value is not in what we do. It's in the fact that we are God's.
Yes.
And so I think that's a mindset that our culture has, is that your value is determined by what you do. And there's a reason we have to schedule rest. We have to prioritize connection with God and stopping producing. God himself knew when creation was done. It's time to be done creating. You can create until you're blue in the face and then it's too much and too chaotic. And God knew, no, order requires rest. Order requires a start and a stop to things.
Which is really interesting because when you study things about branding and logos and things like that, you know, the thing that I think that we've learned is that a logo or someone's brand that's so cluttered, that's got a lot of stuff going on.
Too much.
It's too much for the eyes, and people they don't like that. But we are drawn to those things that have some margin around it, some white space around a nice thing.
But are simple. It's like music.
Yeah.
Yeah, but rest in music. And yeah.
If it's just a constant cacophony of noise, it's too much. Overstimulating, it's painful to your soul. And so is if your life is just a cacophony of noise. It is painful to your soul. It's damaging to your soul. So for you personally, what is that like? Give me an example of what that might look like practically in your life, margin or rest or building a rhythm of worship and prayer and connection. What does that look like for you personally?
So something that I'm trying to work on, so I'm not going to say, but like I'm also going to bed like around 12 o'clock, which is not enough. But like somebody said, that was talking and I was listening, and they were like, you know, I put my kids to bed and I immediately go into my own wind down, like, you know. But I don't do that. I put my kids to bed and then I start to think about all the tasks that I haven't done throughout the day. And then at this point, it's like 9:30 and I'm like, and then I'm getting angry, right? Because my body is tired. But I'm telling myself to get through these tasks. So I'm not really doing them well. I'm, you know, they're not getting done well. So what I'm trying to do is, okay, wind down starts as soon as I leave their room. I go, whatever that looks like, you know, I go take a shower, I relax, I make myself some tea, whatever that looks like for, you know.
Yeah.
Is that, so it's more of a rhythm. Because that can happen on any, you know, it's not like, okay, it happens at precisely this moment of time. But it's like, I do this one thing and then this thing happens. I do this one thing. And there's no like, try to have no variation. It's just a habit.
Yeah.
Versus thing, you know.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. What about you? What does that practically look like in your life for scheduling rest and connection?
I kind of had a moment this week that sort of stuck with me. I am, as a teacher during the day, there's always a million things going on. There's always something that I have to do, some kid that I need to check on, some paper that needs to be graded, some meeting that I have to go to. And it's a lot. And I have scheduled quote unquote breaks in my day, like a planning period and a lunch break. And I wasn't taking those. And I was going home at the end of the day. And Robbie would ask me constantly, are you okay? Because I'm driving home and I'm like white knuckling the steering wheel. And I'm sitting up like this, you know, all straighter than I need to. And I realized that I need to schedule something in the middle of that day that allows me time to breathe so that I'm not a ball of stress when then it's time to go home and have time with my family and do things at home. And the thing that made me realize that was actually Alora, my middle daughter. And she, they have a program at school where they earn little pieces of paper, paws is what they're called, and they can buy things with those paws. She bought lunch with a teacher. And she came and asked me if I would have lunch with her, which is just so sweet. I know. It melted my heart. But I had to then go, what was I going to tell her? No?
I'm too busy. Sorry, I'm
Too busy. I can't take lunch with you. I have a lunch period for a reason. That period there is for me to take a breath and a rest. And so she forced me to do that. And I realized that my afternoon class, which is a little bit more chaotic, was less chaotic for me personally in my mind and my physical body because I took those few minutes of rest and connection with her to then go to the rest of my day.
I love that.
I think just sometimes you need someone from the outside to go, hey, chill out a little bit. But even in a work day, stepping away from the computer, stepping away from the responsibilities for even just a couple of minutes.
It's absolutely no, but really like 5 deep breaths or however it is. It's kind of like that. What's the least you can do? Wow, that only took 5 minutes. Sometimes even just 5 minutes of rest does a lot for your mentality and your soul. Yeah. What about you practically? How do you make margin for rest and worship or connection, all the things?
I think I loosely block my day, morning, afternoon, evening, and I like not on paper, but I mean loosely as in the way my routines have evolved. And that is when I get up in the morning, I don't even jump in the shower right away. I get up, make coffee, go sit in my comfy chair and open my Bible. Or sometimes I just I can't read. Some mornings I just can't read. So I just sit with the Lord. And I might talk to him or I might just sit with him. And that quiet is such a boost for me. It's just a way to reset my mind and be ready to walk into the day with the Lord and not by myself and not trying to take over like I do. Try to take over. And then once I am done with, whatever I do in the morning, but usually it's right now we're reading through the Bible. So when I'm not behind and I'm actually reading through the Bible like I'm supposed to be doing, I get that done. And then I have other reading I like to do. And then I might work on a little something. And then, I do a break after around 2:00. I'm like an old English lady. I have my tea. That's great. And my scone or my cookie or whatever. And then sometimes I'll even break right before dinner time. Before I have to go in and fix supper, I will, I gotta have 5 minutes. A lot of times I've been out running errands. I come back in and before I start supper, I go back into my comfy chair with a tea and just sit. And I just have to there's just something that feeds my soul just to sit with a cup of tea for a few minutes. And then I'm ready to go back out and do all the things I do, serving my family, making supper and all the things. And I also, every evening, I reset the house. I tidy the family room, which, Bradley destroys throughout the day. And I have to make sure everything's taken care of in the kitchen. I load the dishwasher. I wipe down the countertops. I just make sure everything looks okay in there. It's not spotless, but it's
the least that you can do.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And it's what I don't want to wake up to in the morning. I don't want to I don't want you to
wake up with to-dos looking at you in a
exactly.
Yes.
And, I want to, and then I have a cup of kava tea, which is very relaxing before I go to bed. So I'll go back. I do. I'll go I'll go back into my office, in my comfy chair and have my kava tea before I go upstairs to go to bed and do my night stuff I do. I don't have little kids at home, so I have the luxury of taking tea throughout my day. And that is so...
I think that brings up a good thing that all of us, whether we have little kids at home or not, can find ways to integrate some sort of, this sounds weird, but it's not weird, I promise, some sort of ritual in our day. Like something that, and like you had said, it's not necessarily on a schedule, but it's on a rhythm. Yeah. That after this happens. And it centers us. And like you had talked about earlier with the balancing on one foot, it's an anchor for us. Your rest can be an anchor for you. What about you? What's a practical way?
First thing, I am almost, unless I'm hanging out with you crazy ladies, in bed by 8:00. Yeah. I am I just go to bed at that time because I'm tired. And if I'm tired, I go to sleep. And then this easel with this painting is very practical. I would say I have accountability from my husband to rest because I can struggle with rest. He's much better at it. He has several hobbies and he has no problem working on the things that bring his soul joy. But not very long ago, he showed me a picture of a paint by number and he said, would you like to do this? And I said, I don't know, maybe if I had the time. And he was like, you have to take the time. It's important. You need things that feed your soul. And so he built me this easel. And so I have this set up all the time now. And he gently and lovingly encourages me, have you painted lately? And you know what? I love it. When I decide to do it and I sit down to do it, and having it out all the time and set up makes it easy. I can do it for 10 minutes even.
Yeah.
And just, it's very soothing to just fill in the numbers with the colors. But I think having accountability for me has been very beneficial because there's always something to do. And like you, working full time, there's a limited amount of time at home to get this stuff done. So having accountability and going to bed at 8:00.
I think he brought up something that is really important to me when it comes to rest. Beauty is really important to me. And I think there's something very Christian, very spiritual about embracing beauty. Because God loves beautiful things. He creates beautiful, everything he creates is beautiful.
Yes.
And so something that really brings me rest is creating something beautiful because I feel like I'm partnering with God, not to do work, but to enjoy his creation. And so, I like digging, and this is a newer thing for me because I wasn't like this 10 years ago because I used to kill everything I touched. Not my children, they're still alive. Oh, yeah. Greetings. Every green thing died. But I've discovered the past few years that we moved out to the country, I love digging in the dirt and planting. I love tending a garden. I love, and it's beautiful. I love chickens.
Yeah. You do.
I do. And there's some work involved with those things, but some of those things just being around them. One time Tanya came to my house and I was like a weird lady sitting in a lawn chair just outside my chicken coop staring at my chickens. And she drove up and she's like, what are you doing? And then I realized, you're being really weird, Lindsay. But I was out there for like 20 minutes just sitting there watching them because, one, I think chickens are beautiful, some of them. And they're funny and they have personality and they're so different from me. And so I'm kind of fascinated by them. And so just sitting outside in nature and watching nature do its thing is beautiful and restorative to my soul. And so that's something that I love, sitting on my front porch and just, especially my husband, every time it rains, he is out on the front porch. So he loves to watch the storm come in and just listen to it make its way through the woods to our house and pass through. And I usually will go out there with him. A lot of times our kids will come out and we just let sit on the porch during a storm. There's something that restores my soul, being in God's creation and enjoying his beauty. And so we're going to wind this thing down. I hope this has been helpful for you, but I just want to reiterate, part of finding balance is not equal everything. It's everything in its rightful place in our hearts, our minds, and our schedules. It starts with surrender, moves to stewardship, and we prioritize these sacred rhythms of rest. And so I'm going to ask 3 questions before we leave for you to just pause and reflect on. What am I carrying that's weighing me down? What's one area that I can surrender to the Lord this week? And what sacred rhythm am I missing from my daily life? You are not meant to hustle until you drop dead. You're meant to work 6 days and rest 1, and finding the balance and priorities that God has chosen for your specific life, what your ministry and family needs to look like as it pursues the Lord, is going to look different than what mine looks like or what any other woman here looks like, except that it will all be in pursuit of Jesus. So you can follow us on social media, and as we kind of continue talking about these things, we'll post some clips. We usually have a freebie that goes along with our podcast episodes, because we love to put some practical tools in your hand to implement things. A lot of times we hear something, we're like, oh man, God's really teaching me about that, and then we don't do anything about it. So we want to give you some practical tools in your hands to do something about the things God's teaching you about. GPT. A great help. So yeah, that'll be available to you. You can follow us on social media on the She Is His podcast Facebook page or Instagram, prettyandwise.com. You know all of our socials. Follow us on Spotify and Apple, and we cannot wait. In 2 more weeks, we'll be back to talk to you some more. That's right. Thanks for tuning in today.